Terra Moons is coming out with a new palette. It is the Ophiuchus palette. I'm excited to see another palette from them, especially one with a curated color story. I think it's good for a brand to offer both. Now, this is their very first manufactured palette, so all of their single eyeshadows up until this point, and including the previous palettes, had handmade eyeshadows, but it's really hard to do with palettes. So when they launch single eyeshadows, they will still be handmade, but when they launch palettes, they will be manufactured. So let's take a look at the inside color story. Definitely very, very serpent-like. We've got lots of greens, a teal, mint orange, and then shimmers that are of varying finish and texture. And this palette is launching May 23rd at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and it will retail for $57. I was expecting it to be more expensive because their previous palettes that were handmade were much more pricey. So I do like the fact that this one is below $60, and I do have an affiliate code which will save you even more money off of that. And thank you so much if you do use my code. And I did receive this palette in PR, so I'm going into trying out this palette as I'm trying brand new formulas. They did say that this shimmer formula is the closest that they could find to their single eyeshadows, and I'm going to be showing you detailed swatches of all of the shimmer shades. I'm going to be talking about the textures, the finishes, are they buildable, etc. And I'm also going to be showing you some comparisons, not with all the shades. I didn't include this one in because it's not a multi-chrome or a duochrome. I don't find this one particularly kind of unique to do swatch comparisons for. So the palette has 4 multi-chromes, 1 duochrome, and 1 metallic shimmer. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to be showing you how I created these 2 looks, and I'll give you some of my thoughts at the end of the video. I'm going to be swatching these 2 at a time. Alpha Ophiuchi and Kepler's Supernova. You can see a slight textural difference between them. This one definitely has a little bit, tiny bit larger particle size. It's a bit more sparkly versus this one is just really smooth and metallic. And this one's definitely going to be pretty opaque, and it feels pretty dry to the touch. And then this one I'm going to put on just like a little bit, and then I'll add another layer so we can see it kind of built up. This shade is a beautiful, like a mid-tone teal shade, and this one has like a grayish plum base to it, especially seen on the angle there, and a bright orange reflect to it, and it shifts to gold and also green on a really harsh angle. It's definitely pretty shifty. I'm going to add another layer. That was pretty messy, but gives you an idea that you can definitely make it. It's still going to have a little bit of that sheerness to it because of the base. Next 2 shades are Zeta Ophiuchi and Little Ghost Nebula. Again, slightly different particle size. This one has just a little bit of an emollient feeling to it. This one feels harder pressed, but super, super smooth and very high shine, iridescent. I think this one you could sheer out a little bit. And then this is, of course, a beautiful kind of bright green straight on with a little bit of a yellow base to it, shifting to blue to purple. I love the shift in this one. It is super, super shifty, really, really smooth. And I definitely see some like orangey yellow in there as well on an angle there. The top shade is like a dusty pink, and it shifts to orange to gold to lime green. And the other 2 shades are 13th Zodiac and Twin Set Nebula. And this shade is definitely a bit more chunky in the pan. It's also pretty squishy, and it's very hard to pick up without kind of moving around in the pan. And then this one I would say is most similar to the shade above it in texture, and it does have just ever so slightly a little bit of an emollient feeling to it. So I'm going to swatch just like a little bit first and kind of blend it out. So you can see what that looks like. This one can definitely also be sheared out a bit. Brown. So this shade has a brown base to it, but it's kind of like a mid-tone brown, and it definitely leans a little bit more cooler tone, like a more of a taupe. It has white flecks throughout it that are pretty prominent, and they sway the entire shadow to look even more kind of cooler toned. And then this one down here is a bright pinky red shift with green and orange shift, as well as yellow in there. And it looks like it has a little bit of a green base to it for sure, which will definitely be brought out with another layer. And then I'm just going to add another layer here to just make it more even. And this one definitely, like I said, feels a little bit kind of pasty. 13th Zodiac definitely has a little bit more sparkle to it, but it does smooth out. It just needs the pressure of the finger. So because this is my first time trying out these mattes, I will be using two different eyeshadow primers, which both of these are two of my favorite eyeshadow primers. I have a whole video about eyeshadow primers, so check it out, but I'm going to be using the Matte Veil Primer from Ulta Beauty and then the Too Faced Shadow Insurance. I feel like these are definitely a little bit different from each other. This one's a little bit more almost silicone-y and much thicker, while this one is a little bit more liquidy, especially compared to this one, and this one has a little bit of coverage while this one doesn't. So I'm putting on the Ulta primer on this eye. I'm taking Serpent Bearer and I'm gonna pop that onto the outer edge of my outer crease and just work that outwards. So far the pigmentation is really nice. And just taking a little bit more and just really blending this out kind of in slightly more of a V shape. Next I'm picking up this teal shade. I can't pronounce it, so I'm just going to point to it and then I'm just going to pop that onto this outermost corner and blend it into the minty shade. And I can definitely tell right off the bat that these feel very different from the Terra Moons Handmade mattes, because those are very lightly pressed. They have quite a bit of kick up. There's almost no kick up in these, which I don't mind if there's kick up per se. Like the kick up itself is not what bothers me. It's really, usually those kinds of shades tend to be just not my favorite because of how they put down and blend out. But that really is just a personal preference. So then I just blended this with no more eyeshadow, and that looks pretty nice. I think I'm gonna go back in just a little bit more, just like out here, re-strengthening that. And then I'm gonna take the shade kind of on an angle. Picked up a little Ghost Nebula on the Refer 26 brush. This is my favorite kind of brush to use for the inner corner swoop. And I'm gonna mist it just a little bit with the Carla Cosmetics Mist Potion. And I'm gonna bring that right up in here. Oh yeah, that's the stuff. Look at that. Super metallic. High shine. Very glowy, which I love that. And I think I'm just gonna stick to this brush. And I think I'm gonna use Twin Set Nebula. And I'm gonna mist it again just to avoid any fallout. The shade doesn't have, it has just a little bit more texture to it, but it looks like it's smoothing out just fine. So I'm just gonna go back in and just layer it on kind of in the center, and then I'm merging it in with the iridescent shade. And then I'm gonna bring it out just a little bit more, just a hair, just to make sure there's no harsh edge out here. Ooh, that is so pretty. I love the contrast of this multi-chrome to the teals. Here's the first finished look. So onto the second look, I'm using the Too Faced Shadow Insurance Primer. I'm going to be dipping into some of the grassy greens in here. I do kind of wish that one of these was just a little bit lighter, like this one. If it was even just a little bit lighter, maybe a different tone. I feel like these are pretty similar. So I'm going in with Barnard 68, and I'm popping that into the outer corner and into the crease. And that applied super nice and pigmented. I'm just gonna go in with a little bit more out here. Kind of feel, see, I feel like I need something to blend this out with, so I'm gonna further blend this out with. So I'm gonna go in with a setting powder after. So I picked up a little bit of setting powder on a clean brush, and I'm just going over the edges and just really getting that blended. I feel like it may be sticking down just a little bit on this primer more than the other one, but just a tiny bit. And then I'm taking the Refer 13 Mini and I'm gonna use Dark Horse Nebula. And it's gonna go on the outer corner, surprise, surprise. And I'm just first kind of putting it down, so that now I'm gonna go back to the other brush. This is from Hakuhodo, and I'm just gonna blend this into the other green. Look at that. I find these so much easier to use, way more easier to use than the other mattes from them, for sure. I prefer I think in general, from my experience, I prefer manufactured mattes to handmade mattes. So now it's shimmer time, and I want to use a 13th Zodiac, which this shade has definitely the largest particle size in this whole palette, and it's squishy, and it's going to be really hard to pick up on a brush because of all those reasons. There are two ways I like to apply these kinds of shades. One is with a finger, and as you're picking it up, you're kind of going up against the edge so that it smooths out right away. Or you can use a tool like this one right here. This is actually a lip silicone. I think it's called like a blurring lip line brush or something like that, and then you can pick that up pretty easily and put it down pretty easily with this. So I'm going to be showing you the application with this. And I like this because the way that you apply the pressure to this is different than on a brush because of the fact that it's like a silicone and it's more solid versus bristles that are kind of compressing together. Ooh, I like the way that looks. It's got a little bit more of a silvery reflect. And I definitely think you could transform this one even more if you put a matte underneath, but I kind of like the look of this because this way I have a little bit of lightness here. I definitely have just a little bit of fallout from that, but compared to what you would get with a brush, it is so much less. Here's the second finished look. So I'm going to talk about the mattes first. I really like these mattes. They remind me of the Beaute bar mattes, for example. They're really easy to use. They're not thin or powdery or kick-uppy. They do have like a little bit of denseness to them, so they do pick up and put down pretty opaque, but you can definitely go in with a lighter hand and build them up if you want to. I think they also layered and blended together really nicely so far from what I've tried in the palette. So this formula definitely feels familiar to me, and I do prefer these mattes to their handmade mattes, which really comes down to preference. I don't think that their hand pressed mattes are bad. It's just not my favorite kind of texture and usability that I have with those mattes. It's not really a matte formula that I would think to reach for on like a day-to-day basis. In the morning when I'm getting ready for work, I would definitely much prefer something like this. Super easy to use kinds of mattes. I don't have to worry about them kind of blending away. Am I putting on too much? Are they picking up really heavily? Are they just blending out? Am I losing control with the blend? So I'm really enjoying these mattes, and I'm excited for more mattes like this from Terra Moons. Also, forgot to mention these pans are 26mm pans, and they are magnetic, so you can do your own BYOPs with other Terra Moons shadows or whatever other shadows. As for the color story, I really like it. It's definitely up my alley. I do love these kinds of tones, but I do still wish these two shades were just a little bit more different from each other. So moving on to the shimmers, these are definitely a way different formula from Terra Moons shimmers. I don't think these are really similar at all. Maybe this one right here, the iridescent, kind of. It's definitely a little bit harder pressed than even most of their other iridescents, which a lot of their really smooth iridescents have almost like a little bit of dryness to them. This one, not saying that this one is oily or anything like that, but it has just a little bit more of a silkiness to it. That being said, some of the finishes are definitely similar to what they have. And what I mean by that is, for example, this one's a little bit more flaky, so they do have some flaky shades that are kind of like this. That being said, the texture, very different. They don't have any squishy shadows, and this shade is very squishy, and it really moves around in the pan to the point that when I was swatching it for the comparisons part, I actually hit pan on it because I kept just like pushing down into it to be able to swatch it, because it does pick up a little bit thick. Definitely a shadow you want to go in with just a little bit, because otherwise it will most likely look a little bit more textured on the lid and you might get a little bit more fallout. So I'm not too happy to see a really squishy shadow. I'm glad that not all of these are super emollient. They do have just a little bit more of that, just a little bit more of the like slickness to them. So like Dieverune Cosmetics, Bella Beaute Bar, and Fantasy Cosmetica, I would describe these in formulation to be similar to, because of the slightly more slick feeling to them. As somebody with hooded oily lids, I do really love their handmade eyeshadows because they don't have that slickness to them, because they do have a drier feel. So I'm going to be wearing this look for a couple hours, and I'll let you know if it creased on me or not, because it is this shade right here, which is the squishiest shade. So overall, I do like the palette. I'm just a little bit disappointed to see a squishy shade, and I'm happy to see more palettes from them. That being said, I do hope that they do launch some future palettes without squishy shadows. And the mattes, I already mentioned, I really do enjoy these mattes. I'm looking forward to seeing some curated color stories from them. My favorite shades are definitely this one, and this one. This one is just so smooth and so easy to use, but it's really glowy and high impact. And then this one, of course, I love me a more grungy, more contrasty kind of shimmer, and also love how transformative this one can be, as well as this one. This one's kind of a little bit more like an everyday. I just love this kind of tone. So let me know in the comments below what you think of this palette. Do you plan on picking it up? Are you putting it on your wish list? Are you excited to see more palettes from them? Love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoy these kinds of videos with lots of swatches of super shiny, shifty, sparkly eyeshadows and tutorials, then definitely check out some of my other videos, which I'll put up on the screen. And thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.